What was your biggest takeaway from the game last night?
I think the big thing for me, honestly, is the emergence of Devin Lloyd. And if he can continue to play like he did last night, this already is one of the best run defenses in the NFL. Statistically, they were top 10 in success rate and EPA per play against the run coming into this game. The Saints averaged 3.6 yards per carry, bunch of goal line stands, bunch of negative rushes throughout the entire game. But Lloyd's ability to, look like Foye Luke a little bit, played well in coverage, was good sideline to sideline, made some smart decisions. We know Tyson Campbell's coming back in the secondary. They have talent back there. Andre Sisco, a good young player. Obviously, Darius Williams playing good ball. I think that second level opposite of Foye was a concern. Obviously, need a little bit more pass rush as well. But Lloyd looked awesome last night. And if that defense can continue to play like that, I mean, it's a good team on both sides of the ball with a lot of young talent, more guys coming back. I think Chad Muma's hurt right now too. So, I mean, yeah, they're a good team.
Yeah, and the Chad Muma being hurt thing is possibly huge for Devin Lloyd as well. It kind of opens the door for him to have that full established role, get back to where he was. Remember, he had such a weird rookie year because for the first month of the season, he was grading on fire, looked incredible, and then it completely fell off a cliff to the point where he went from, a month in, we're like, this is defensive rookie of the year. And then it went a month later, he's getting benched. He's not even starting. He's splitting time with Chad Muma, and he's fully benched. And then he sort of worked his way back and split the difference, but never got back to that level of play again. And then this season, first couple of weeks weren't great, but after that, he's been getting steadily better and better and looks like that player that was, playing like rookie of the year for the first few weeks of the season last season. So Devin Lloyd was a player that we loved coming out. He's the prototypical modern linebacker, 6'3", 235. He can run, he can cover. If he's back to being that player and you put him next to Oluokun, that's an awesome spine of the team right there.
Yeah, and both of those guys can rush too. I think Oluokun had 4 pressures last night on some blitzes from Mike Caldwell, and they were doing a lot of different things up front, trying to generate more pressure. Yeah, I mean, they're a fun team. And, unfortunately, the one guy who didn't really show up against a third-string right tackle was Trayvon Walker, a 5.6% pass rush win rate. I think he had 1 pressure. Just has not really taken that step this year. And Aiden Hutchinson, meanwhile, is, second in the league in pressures. So they're probably kicking themselves on that one. But it is obviously still very early in both of those guys' career.
Yeah, we found a couple of extra pressures for him on review. He's up to 4 in the game, but they were all hurries. They were all sort of low-impact type of pressures, and he ends up with a pass rushing grade of 44.2 going up against Cameron Irving, who is a liability in pass protection. I mean, Cameron Irving shouldn't be starting games for an NFL team and wouldn't be if it wasn't for injuries. So for Walker not to be able to go out there and absolutely wreck that guy is a massive problem. He also had 3 missed tackles, which is, pretty atrocious. You only have to look at the other side of the line and see how bad that is, because Josh Allen also had a massively favorable matchup, right? The Saints ended up being down both tackles. So Andres Pete, a guy who played left tackle in college but has basically been benched from his guard starting spot, ends up playing left tackle, gets wrecked the way you would expect a backup guard to get wrecked at left tackle. And Josh Allen has 10 pressures, is in the backfield all night. Doesn't get a sack, but, was a huge impact player during the game. And Walker just wasn't on the other side with an equally bad blocker or favorable matchup, depending on which way you want to look at it.
Yeah, and obviously Derek Carr was checking it down to Alvin Kamara, at most opportunities. But you had a game script that did lead to him having to hold on to the ball pretty much the entire game, right? You're up 2 scores early. Derek Carr knows he has to at least try to throw down the field. That is a perfect opportunity for Walker to tee off on a, like you said, a guy that realistically probably should not be playing or starting in NFL games in 2023. It's just, it goes back to I keep mock trading them an edge rusher in every single article I put out. There's a reason why I'm doing that. They need more juice there, and they're not getting it from last year's number 1 overall pick.
They're not. And you look at his, his grades generally, they haven't been catastrophic this year, but they haven't been good either. And, he's got a 57.7 pass rushing grade, which is almost identical to what it was a year ago, which was 58.6. The same thing, his overall grade is basically the same. Every number is the same or slightly worse, right? He's not taken any kind of developmental step. Now, look, if you want to be on his side in this, if you want to make the case, we knew he was raw. We knew it was going to take some time. We're still only early in his second season, but you would want to see some kind of step forward at this point, even if he's not all the way there, right? You want to see signs that something is getting better. And at the moment, there are none of those signs. There's no sign that anything is improving. And we are a season and a half almost into his NFL career, and he looks like the same player he was when they drafted him. And conversely, Aiden Hutchinson has gone from being good right out of the gate to then looking amazing towards the back end of last season to now looking, I mean, he leads the league in pressures, right? Like the problem that Trayvon Walker is dealing with is not only has he not improved at all, but Aiden Hutchinson, who was already way better than he was, has improved several steps since then. Like, by contrast, it looks even worse.
Yeah, you're always going to get compared to that guy. It was obviously a huge topic of conversation. And look, the conversation always was, Hutchinson's probably a better football player right now, but Walker could become a special talent, the traits and all that. You also watch his rushes last night. I mean, like, I just didn't see any like pass rush plan, no moves. I didn't really see him use his hands. I think he still just kind of wants to bull people because he knows he's a superior athlete. But I mean, you can't just run straight at someone 50 times and expect something to work. It's just, it doesn't seem like he actually has much of an idea of what he's trying to accomplish on a down-to-down basis. Again, it's early, but I mean, at a certain point, it's not too. I mean, we're 25 games into his career, and we're not really seeing much growth there.
Yeah, I mean, number one, there's the chance that it may never happen. But number two, you can only take so long to develop before the pick itself was bad, right? Like, if it takes him 4 years to get good, was it a good pick at number one overall, particularly if the other option was amazing after like 8 games, right? Like, because that's the decision, even if you end up being justified, right? Let's say he goes on a Rashawn Gary type arc where it takes him a couple of years and by like year 3, he's amazing. I mean, okay, but the other option was amazing after 8 games, so that's a year and a half of like cheap deal for that guy where he was playing like an all-pro that the other one wasn't. Like, it's making it harder and harder to justify the pick the longer it takes for him, even if you end up ultimately being proved correct and he ends up becoming this amazing player. And the point you made, like, part of the narrative with Aiden Hutchinson was a little bit like Joey Bosa in particular. It's like, can he get any better than this? Like, is he already tapped out? Is he already maximized his potential? Like, if that was your sort of argument, well, this guy's better now, but he's that's as good as he's going to get. Well, it wasn't. Like, he's already gotten significantly better, and the guy you drafted hasn't. So, man, it's looking bad. And he's not, like, it's not even like the pass rush isn't there, but other elements are amazing. Like, he's not defending the run particularly well. He's not amazing at anything else. They're dropping him into coverage every now and again, which I honestly think is the thing he does best. But that's ridiculous, right? He's going to drop into coverage like 100 times in the year. And if that's his calling card, that's just a waste of a draft pick. So that's a rough thing for Jacksonville. But the good news is they don't need him being good because Josh Allen is fantastic. The rest of that defense is moving in the right direction. Darius Williams is great playing outside. The linebacker duo we talked about, if Devin Lloyd is back to being the player that he looked like, is good. They would love Trayvon Walker to take that step forward, but it's a good defense anyway.
Interior, I think, we need to talk about it more. And Devon Hamilton didn't even play. I think he went back out with an injury for this game. He briefly came back, and I think he missed this game. I could have that wrong, but yeah, I mean, you're finally seeing the Fatukasi that we saw in New York, the guy that earned the contract from the Jaguars. He was not good last year, and now he against the run, at least from what I saw on the broadcast last night, was a problem. And he's been an issue for a couple offenses the last couple of weeks. Roy Robertson-Harris, always a guy that kind of flies under the radar, but a good interior pass rusher. Like, that unit right now is so hard to run on, and they're getting enough pressure here and there. They don't have some monster 3-tech that's getting upfield and really wreaking havoc, but they do enough, and they really just clog up the middle. Teams cannot run on them at all, and then they have to get in these disadvantageous situations. But, a Darius Williams and a healthy Tyson Campbell has been an awesome duo on the outside as well. So, yeah, I mean, this defense is rounding into shape. It's probably one of the youngest defenses in the NFL still. And like you said, we spent a lot of time on the negative, but there is a lot of positive here for sure.
Yeah, and getting that win, like, that was a game that they were in control of early and then somehow let the Saints back into this. and they tied it up, right? And Jacksonville had to go and win the game again, like for a second time, and they did. Like they managed to pull that out of the bag. Trevor Lawrence was impressive with that knee injury and the brace on it. Like he scrambled a few times. Generally, it's not like he was, Zay Flowers out there, but he was taking what was there, and he's still got some good straight line speed, even if he couldn't cut laterally the way he would want to. Trevor Lawrence played well. The offense generally played well and dug themselves out of a hole that they could have thrown away.
They really tried to give the Jaguars that game, even early when they were mounting a lead. The 2 fumbles early on, just begging the Saints to do something. They get a field goal out of those 2 turnovers. The interesting thing there, though, is there has been a trend. The Jaguars are top 5 in the NFL in EPA per play on scripted drives, and then are outside the top 20 on non-scripted drives. And that reared its ugly head once again last night. I think before the touchdown to Christian Kirk, so they go up 17-0 or whatever, 17-6. From that point until the Christian Kirk touchdown, they had like 50 yards of offense. Like it was tough sledding. You obviously had the pick 6, which was huge. And then the last drive was out, a great drive and a great play there. But not Press Taylor's calling plays there, and they escaped with a win. They've obviously won 4 games in a row, but that trend is troubling. And a good team that can actually score probably comes back and wins that game, and hands the Jaguars a depressing loss there. So just something to monitor, continuing to monitor, because you also would imagine Doug Peterson plays a large role in the scripted series, and then when it gets after that, it's probably more Press Taylor kind of controlling things, and it really isn't working.
Yeah, I was happy to see Christian Kirk kind of get redemption later in the game. I mean, he had the fumble where he kind of caught a pass going to ground and then realized he wasn't touched yet. He could get up and try and make a play. And it was just that horrible sort of split second when you get up and you don't quite have the ball under full, 100% control. It's not high and tight the way it normally is. And Paulson Adebo, I think, comes in, just knocks it straight out there and, costs them a drive and gives the Saints life. And then Christian Kirk comes back later in the game with that big touchdown that made a huge difference. So glad to see him get a little bit of a redemption arc during the game. But the point that we were going to get onto is, like, Derek Carr didn't have a good game at all, and yet should have thrown the game-winning touchdown right at the end. Like, the last drive in the red zone, puts the ball in the hands of Foster Moreau in the back corner of the end zone, and he drops it. And then, ironically, the next play, he should have had an interception. Like, it was a bizarre sequence right in the shadow of the goal line where, like, 2 incompletions, and yet it should have been a touchdown to start with and then an interception to begin with, and it ends up being neither, and he just gets, towards the end.
Yeah, Carr's game is interesting. We obviously talked about all the offensive line injuries, and I think we've probably talked before, even on snaps where you don't see pressure, I'm sure the quarterback has a sped up internal clock, but a lot of his worst throws all night, in my opinion, were when he did not need to get the ball out. Like, he had a decent pocket and rushed it. We obviously were laughing pre-show about him barking at Chris Olave as the ball sailed 5 yards out of bounds, but there were a handful of overthrows and, just misses or just forcing it out too quickly when guys were creating separation. There's one play where Rashid Shaheed was wide open and he checked it down to Alvin Kamara, and you saw Shaheed do one like dude, I literally had 6. When he did start mounting the comeback, it was still literally just checkdowns to Kamara or speed outs to Chris Olave on the sideline. Like, he didn't actually make any, in my opinion, meaningful throws. And nice sort of Taysom Hill on a corner route, but. And yes, the touchdown should have been caught. Was a perfectly fine throw, but just that offense, it really is like the first couple series was run, 9 route to Michael Thomas that has a 0% chance of getting caught. We saw it like 3 times in the first half. But I don't know if I can solely blame Pete Carmichael. Derek Carr looks out of sorts, doesn't seem to have any sort of chemistry or rhythm right now in this offense. And but at the same time, it is funny how, like you said, we should have had a tie game. I won't say game winning because the odds Dennis Allen goes for 2 there are 0%. Right. But yeah, they should have tied the game up right there.
So it reminds me a lot of Derek Carr with the Raiders a couple of years ago when I took no end of crap for this comment, but I was like, it feels like he doesn't really know how to play the game, but he sort of knows how it's supposed to look. And he, every now and then, he knows he's supposed to take a certain number of deep shots, right? So every now and again, he'll just take a deep shot, right? And so I can't remember. I used some ridiculous metaphor I was trying to make, but Raiders fans were big mad. But it feels like the same thing again, right? Where it doesn't seem like he knows how he's supposed to be running this offense. He knows generally what it's supposed to look like. Like, in order for this to work, I need a certain volume of these deep passes. So to hell with it, let's just lob one up to Michael Thomas. You're like, well, that's not. This is like when the James Franklin question, right? Where somebody was asking him, like, do you want to why wouldn't you just throw the ball deep randomly, right? It doesn't matter. Just close your eyes, just throw it. It doesn't matter what the coverage is like, what the look is, what the play is. Just chuck it. And it broke his brain. Like, I don't even understand why you would ask this. This is the most ridiculous question I've ever heard. But that sort of feels like how Derek Carr is playing at the moment, where it's not connected to the scheme or what he's looking at. It's just, this is the play that I've decided to throw right now because I haven't thrown a deep shot for a while, or I haven't targeted this side of the field for a bit, or I've done 3 checkdowns in a row, so I've got to go somewhere else. It's not. I don't understand what's happening with him, but I do know I've seen it before with him.
It's spot on. I don't think that could be much more spot on. And I mean, look, the eventual touchdown to Michael Thomas was a nice ball. Obviously, even better catch and getting that knee down. But yeah, like, there just seems to be no like rhyme or reason to why things happen on so many dropbacks. Like, exactly, I can't put it better than how you just put it. It's just so out of sorts and clunky. And even when it is working, you're kind of just sitting there like, yeah, this probably isn't sustainable. Like I said, the late touchdown drive to Michael Thomas, I think he just hit Chris Olave on a speed out 4 times, and then Alvin Kamara had 20 yards after the catch on a check down. Like, that was the entire drive. Or the Jaguars would give them 15 yards on dumb penalties. Like, the Jaguars really tried to like beg them to win this game, and then they just refused.